This is Ethan Morton from Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
And there was the scene at Mackey Arena on Sunday morning or afternoon, really. I should say early afternoon before the NFL playoff slate kicked off. And your Purdue Boilermakers are back as the number one team in the country. You know, we had talked about that not being the focus anymore a few times here on this show. Didn't really think Houston was going to lose if you had looked ahead at their schedule. They fall to Temple 61-60. A team they were, positioned or favored to beat by like 19 and a half or something. And Kansas at number 2 fell three games in a row here in the last week. So your Purdue Boilermakers back at number 1, the number 1 spot in the country. Not a bad place to be for a rebuilding season. I am your host, Gregory Brex Jr., and as always, alongside me is my co-host, Kraig Bowers of Boiler Diehards Facebook group. It's a great Facebook group. If you haven't subscribed or followed to it on Facebook, you should. They just passed the 10,000 followers threshold on there. So congratulations to you, Kraig. How you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing good, and it's a good time to be a Boilermaker. Every win right now is another milestone, right? Because we hit a certain point where that was the best start to the season, and every win from here on out that we keep adding to this is just adding to that record in terms of best start. So I think it's super exciting. Pulled out a few close ones over the last few weeks. I think as a Purdue fan, just getting to go to the away Michigan State game and watching that win live, just super, super exciting. And I don't think we've got to reference and frame this season looking back on where we thought we were going to be at the beginning of the year, right? Every once in a while now you see somebody chirping about only winning closely. Like, remember where we thought we were at the beginning of the season.
Right.
And the fact that they are 19-1, the number 1 team in the country, first in the Big Ten, set the record for the best start through 20 games, best start through 19 games. I think really just amazing, amazing time to be a Purdue basketball fan.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So we're going to have some fun tonight. We've been grinding, and credit to you, Kraig, and of course, Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz, who are part of our post-game shows we've been doing this year, launching that aspect of our coverage with Purdue basketball. You guys, held it down the last two games while I was on vacation on Thursday. And then for the Sunday game, I was at Mackey, and then my internet completely froze up on the way home. Probably for the best, trying to do a show while I'm driving on the highway. But at the end of the day, credit to you guys for holding down the fort the first time that we'd ever gone live on these channels, and I wasn't there, and that made me really I was like a proud papa watching you guys grow before my very eyes. Another guy we're excited to bring on tonight is the man, the myth, the legend, this man of Purdue mystery, the man with the mullet, Jared Harter, joins the show here today. Kraig, when you came across Kraig's, stratosphere, he's sending me this text, Jared, and he's like, "Who is this dude?" And I'm like, just from traveling with Purdue here the last few years, I'm like, "That's Jared." You don't know Jared? He's the guy with the mullet. He's at the games. He's always got a couple beers in hand. That's Jared.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "I've never heard of this guy." He's watching The Journey, the Zach Edey, episode of the Big Ten Journey. And there you are, Jared. So Kraig's like, "We got to get this guy on." I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So here you are tonight. What the hell were you eating while you were on the Big Ten Journey? What is this?
Yeah. So, I saw a few comments. Oh, like he's got pork rinds and Cheetos. He's living the life. When Julia Edie's cooking, she's got the whole team to feed. It's only healthy. That's bell peppers and carrots,
Going healthy.
Yeah.
Going healthy there.
I've got to, always have a few beers in my hands if I'm at a game or whatnot. But, right there, I decided if I'm with them, that's my one chance to be healthy. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you joining us here tonight. So you're a former Purdue basketball manager. This is your first year not being a manager on the team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so for those that maybe don't understand the role of a manager for a college basketball team, maybe explain exactly what your role was to the Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, it's a lot of, just doing a lot of the behind the scenes work that people don't really understand. You kind of work your way up. So as a freshman, you're just doing a lot of mopping floors, getting players water during practice, during the games, kind of same thing. You're doing some film work, mopping the floors and getting the refs water. And as you work your way up, your sophomore and junior year, you start to become the host for visiting teams. So when they come to Mackey, you're the one taking care of their shoot-arounds. And that's a cool experience, getting to meet some of the coaches from across the Big Ten and around the country too. Like I was lucky enough to be Virginia's host and talk to Tony Bennett. So that was really cool. And then senior year, you're kind of the main guy. You get to finally sit behind the bench, travel to some of the road games. I was lucky enough. I had the Mohegan Sun and the Rutgers and Brooklyn trip last year. But yeah.
Yeah, I was actually at the Mohegan Sun, lucky enough to make that trip as well. And that was a pretty cool moment, right?
Yeah.
Because where Purdue is at now is number one team in the country. They've been it for many weeks, this year. But last year it was the first time in school history, and that tournament kind of was the tipping point to that moment because they take down Villanova or they take down North Carolina, then they take down Villanova in the national championship game. And then all of a sudden they find their way into the number one team in the country, first time in program history. As someone that was close to the team last year, now watching the team this year, how much do you think that helped for these guys, Zach Edey, Ethan Morton, even Trey Kaufman-Renn as a redshirt standing and observing this as being the hunted? How much do you think that the pressure of that, because there was a lot of pressure riding on last year from being number one in the country to having a future NBA draft lottery pick and all the seniors, the whole bit. It felt like a last dance scenario for that core. How much do you think that helped prepare these guys for this year's ride, which a lot of Purdue fans did not expect in what we thought was going to be a rebuild type season. How much do you think that experience helped these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the guys that have been around, Zach, Ethan, Brandon, Mason, they wanted to reach that level again. And the fact that last year it had never happened before. So, I know all of us as Purdue fans were like, oh, well, is it ever going to happen? And so kind of breaking that ceiling, I feel like was really good for the guys. And there's just so much good leadership on the team this year that, as long as everyone's got their heads in the right places, we know the talent we've got. We've seen time and time again, Paint brings in the guys that he thinks are going to be successful and succeed. And it's just a really good group of guys, and those young guys kind of gaining that experience last year as it and seeing it slip away just as quickly as we got it. They were hungry for it again.
Sure.
Yeah. You talked about what you do in your role as a manager with that team, but how did you get into that? Did you play basketball in high school? Did you manage a team in high school, or just like how did that all? I'm sure there's some people watching that are like, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, so I think it was the best job I could ask for as a college student, honestly, and it's a job that so many people don't even realize is available. But I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. And football, basketball, and baseball. I broke my back my freshman year of football, gave up that, and the coaching staff. My dad coached high school football for 30 years, and so the coaching staff was like, "Hey, like we'd like to have you around still. The game. Like, would you like to be a manager for the football team? Stick around your friends, but also, you're not going to be the guy filling up the water bottles. Help break down film for us, some stuff like that." So with that, I kind of fell in love with that aspect of it. And then basketball was always my love. I mean, I played on a state finals team in Indiana. That's this jersey back here. And I had my high school coach reach out to Elliot Bloom, our director of basketball operations, and they got me set up with an application. And I went through the process that summer and went through an interview as soon as I got on campus. And by early September of my freshman year, got the job.
Nice. And you played at Twin Lakes, right?
Yeah.
That's the Monticello area, Greg.
Yeah.
For you region guy,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that area or not, but
yeah, we're more Illinois up here than we are Indiana in a lot of ways. We're the forgotten area of Indiana. So yeah, I wouldn't have known where Twin Lakes is.
Now,
any players of note for you that you went up against at Twin Lakes?
I played against I was a 7th or 8th man on that team, so I didn't get a ton of minutes. But that senior year, we played against Jalen Attaway, who was at St. Bonaventure for a while. Nike Sabandi, who's currently a 6th year at Pitt. He was who we played in the state championship. When we were ranked number 1 in the state, we played against Culver Academy, so Trey Galloway. And they knocked us off, and then we played them again in the regional when they were number 1 in state, and we knocked them off. So definitely some good talent that we went up against that year.
Now, this isn't your first. The Big Ten journey wasn't your first brush with fame, I understand, right?
No, I've had a few moments through my career.
So tell us about the whole Indy Star feature article and going to IU with the Purdue jersey on for the Aaron Wheeler game.
Yeah, so I texted Aaron. It was the night before we left for the Mohegan Sun. So we didn't have a ton to do that night, and I texted Aaron just to see if he had an extra ticket for that game, and he said yeah. And I just had that Purdue, generic jersey that they sell in the bookstores. And so I was like, you know what, I kind of want to be like, I want to support Aaron, but, raise some eyebrows too. And I didn't expect to be right down there front row. I'd had tickets to IU games from players from some of our guys in the past, and I always get stuck up in the rafters. But I also wasn't thinking, Purdue's going to travel really well to that game. St. John's had almost no one there. So, I get put right front row behind the bench every time the ball was on that end of the floor. You could see me. student sections booing me the entire game. Like, I was out at Kilroy's wearing that, and I was like, I'm just going to put my sweatshirt on until we get to the game. And very few people understood it until I'm just like, oh, I'm here for wheels. Just wanted to support. And I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. But yeah, I was definitely enemy number one that night.
Yeah, and Aaron Wheeler is now playing for the Windy City Bulls. I do
Yeah.
some Chicago sports coverage and saw that he, just joined that group here recently. So maybe one of these days I'm going to have to go over there and see how he's doing. It's good to see him still battling it out here. And, so Aaron's a really good dude.
Mm-hmm.
So Jared, when you talk about this team this year, it's hard to put like one word on them, but if you could in a, either one word or a small phrase, like what would you say defines this team and why they were able to kind of look past whatever preseason prognostications they had to become the team they are now?
I think underdog fight. I mean, all these guys, we've seen all the headlines. They weren't the highest ranked recruits. Kind of feel like they've got a chip on their shoulder. It's a lot better defensive team than last year's was. They're always the first to the floor. And that's what we preach at Purdue. The back of the practice shorts play hard on the back. We've got the play hard stats that were one of the things that I was in charge of last year, keeping track of during games. And so just everyone knows who they are. They know their role. And they've at one point in their lives been an underdog. And so even when I was talking to some of the guys this summer and into the fall, like when friends would ask me, I was always kind of cautiously optimistic. The quote I told a lot of people was, we're going to win some games that the media doesn't think we should win. We might lose some games that the media doesn't think we should lose, but just paint. I trust in Paint to find his guys. And, with a freshman this year, in addition to the roster that was already built, like that he's found that, and they're ready to put on a show each night for us.
To piggyback off that real quick, I mean, this is something we've talked about a lot, especially early in the season. The difference between last year and this year. I mean, we talked about the pressure being a lot different for last year's team. But Brian T in the chat wants to ask you, being as close as you have been to this, can you speak to the cohesiveness that this team showed compared to last year's team, who was a top 10 team in the country for the entire season, as much as some of the heartbreak they suffered at times?
Yeah. I mean, like in that feature, you can see almost the whole team was there that night. These guys, they want to hang out with each other outside of practice. It's not just sitting there from 2 to 5, getting some shots up and then going their separate ways. I mean, some of these guys I've gained lifelong friendships with. I mean, they'll be a part of my wedding party someday. And just to be able to see, everyone kind of just joining together now that we've seen the success, realizing what's attainable in front of us. It's a really tight knit group. They're all good personalities, good basketball players, better people. And that makes it really easy to find success, I think.
Hey, your hat is getting all kinds of love in the chat. I got to know where you, did you special order that? Did you find that at a vintage store? Like, how'd you come across that?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of these. I've got this one. I've got a 3-peat hat, and then I've got a 95 hat, and I can't remember which one came from where. One of them I just found on like a vintage Instagram page. I think it's called Shells Vintage. They've got some decent Purdue stuff once every 2 to 3 weeks. And then there's a couple Purdue Instagram pages out there, Hammered Threads and Boiler Vintage. I got one of them through there, and then the other one I just found on eBay.
Then you got a question in the chat wanting to know if that's a Big Dog jersey behind you, but I'm assuming it's a jersey that's yours, correct?
Yeah. So one really cool thing that they did with my senior year was originally supposed to be the COVID year, and we didn't use managers that year. They tried to limit the amount of people in the locker room. Completely understandable. And so the 3 seniors that year, they got custom made jerseys with our nameplates on them, like they do for all the other seniors. And so I ended up sticking around for the following year on a 5th year. But that was originally supposed to be my graduating year. And it was a really cool gift. It wasn't even, they surprised us like a month after the season with it. And, it's something only 3 managers in Purdue history can say that they have that for them. So it's definitely cool to have that.
Being as close as you've been to Matt Painter, I'm certain he was probably in the decision-making process to, do that kind of nice gesture for you guys. Like what have been your impressions of him? Obviously we all here probably think the world of him. So I'm sure that goes without saying, but just watching him through the years, what are some of the things that stand out to you that make him such a special head coach?
Yeah. I mean, he genuinely cares about everyone in the program, not just the players, managers, support staff. He's just, down to earth in that fact that it really is a family. And, even if I go back for games now and I see him when I head back there after the game to talk to the guys, like he'll always make sure to give me a, "Hey, Jared, how you doing?" And he's the type of person that, whether he's teaching you something about basketball or life or just simply telling you a story, you just want to keep your ears open. I mean, we've all seen his pressers and he's always got good one-liners.
Yeah.
And so to be able to see that on a daily basis was incredible.
Is there anything that stood out to you with any of the one-liners, anyone in particular, or something funny he ever said to you? Because I know he has a really good sense of humor. The ones you're allowed to repeat, of course.
Yeah. There was one time in practice that this would have been the 2018-2019 team, and the scout team was just kind of like running all over each other in sets. And he looks at Nogel and he's like, "Hey, Jelly," and I'll change the word here a little bit, but he's like, "You ever seen a fly mate before?" And Jelly's like, "No, coach, I can't say that I have." And he's like, "Well, gold team kind of just looks like flies mating right now. They're just all on top of each other." And I just remember I looked at Tommy Luce, and I mean, it was a serious moment in practice, but it was really funny. That's the one that if someone has something, that's the one I always give out.
Go ahead, Kraig.
I got to get my thoughts together after that. I had one lined up for you. The Big Ten, the Journey experience, being there and getting taped by that for that show and everything else. What was that like? Just going through that production and that process and everything else. I got to be honest. I caught you the second time I watched through.
Okay.
The first time I didn't. The second time I was like, "Whoa, who's that guy?"
Yeah.
And then I actually went back through the walk-ons on the team because I thought, well, maybe he's a walk-on I missed or something like that. So yeah, I just wondered what that process was like and going through all that.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be honest, so I had just gotten off work. Until I can find a full-time position, I'm just working at Harry's right now. And Zach had texted me and he's like, "Yeah, come over to my mom's place. We're having dinner." And so I go over there, and it was a new place from the last time that she had been at. So it was kind of unfamiliar for me. And I just walk in and see a whole camera set, and I'm just like, what am I walking into? I wasn't sure. So I'm just like, I'm going to make myself comfortable. When we do that, we always, while we're waiting, we'll play euchre for a couple hours. And if there's a game on TV, we'll watch the game. And so I just tried to be as natural as possible. But it wasn't until after the crew left, and I was like, "All right, so what was that for?" Like, I just walked into a whole situation I wasn't prepared for. So, yeah.
Yeah, Walter Evans says in the chat, he got that line about flies mating, as you said, from visiting Bobby Knight when him and Pat were playing ball. So it's just funny to me, though, when Kraig was like asking about you. My favorite part was, he's like, "Who is this guy?" The other part, I just love that he circled you as if I wasn't going to know who he's talking about. If he didn't circle you, the circle almost makes it funnier. And it's just like every time I always catch you, you're always in like a really positive mood, always fired up for the game. You know, we've crossed paths, you know, Mohegan Sun, like you said, Big Ten tournament, you know, at Mackey a few times this year. And you just strike me as a guy you'd love to catch a beer with and watch a game, you know, like the prototypical Purdue fan that anybody would want to sit in the bleachers with and watch this team as great as they are. You know, so let's talk about these freshmen, man. I mean, it's crazy to watch Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. You know, it's hard. Like I watch a lot of Purdue fans just talk about like next year, and it's hard not to think about the big picture with these guys because it's insane in 20 games into their career how polished they look. You know, let's start with, you know, Fletcher Lawyer and then we'll move to Braden. But, you know, what has been your observations with Fletcher Lawyer? How has he been able to play like a senior as a freshman, not even halfway through his freshman year?
You know, I think a lot of it, I mean, he's a confident kid. Seeing his brother play growing up, like, you know, I feel like his brother always kind of led the way for him. And I was talking to Jared Wolburn this offseason, and he's just like, yeah, like this kid is a kid that's going to be, at that time, we didn't know who was going to be starting and whatnot, but he's like, he's comfortable in his shot. He's coming in ready to play. And him and Braden just have a confidence about him that, you know, they never really had that freshman kind of, oh, like he's going to take a couple games to figure it out. And just they know the game really well. And a lot of paint system is just knowledge and what can you soak in? How quick can you soak it in? And yeah.
And with Braden, like I'm really curious because we have some people on that are relatively close to the program, and I kind of, you know, we speak to them outside of this, and like everybody kind of had their different moment of like, oh, Braden's the real deal. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I think it was about a month and a half before the season started, or a month, somewhere in there. Like a couple people were just firing things at me and being like, hey, this Braden Smith kid's the real deal. And what he did in high school is translating at the college level. When did you first kind of start to hear whispers of how good Braden might be right off the bat?
I think mine was early this fall. I was over with Zach and Ethan and Jared, and Ethan he's like, yeah, he makes plays I've never seen anybody make on a basketball floor. And like I was listening last week when Ethan talks about how he feels like he sees the game in a very similar way. And just at Braden's size and whatnot, it's like, oh, you almost discount it the first time you see it. And then day in, day out, he's just going to prove himself and just a real special player. I mean, the way when he drives to the hoop, you're like, all right, he's going to get fouled or he's going to make some crazy layup. And I would say once Braden started getting into the fall workouts, once he got healthy, like the guys were just saying like, yeah, this kid's going to be special. He's going to be one of those guys that Purdue fans are going to rave about for the next 4 years.
Yeah. His mom said he was a psychopath. Yeah. I saw an article about him, and it's just been interesting to watch these guys because, like, you know, as we've talked about a bunch on the show the last few years, everybody that knows me knows, you know, Sasha Stefanovic is a good friend, and it's mind blowing to me when he came in. Most freshmen that come in, they got to scratch and claw for every minute they get. When you get in, it's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You're just trying to find your spot in the rotation. These two come in and just have no fear whatsoever. Their feel for the game, the way they move the ball amongst each other, even with Ethan. I think Ethan is just such a great fit with those two. It's basketball poetry in a lot of ways. And I really am enjoying watching these guys, and to think that they could be 4-year guys, which it looks like there's a good chance they both will be. It's scary to think how good they will be, you know, in their senior years. It's almost laughable when you think about it. You know, you mentioned Zach Edey, you know, being over at the house and stuff, and being good friends with him. You know, talk about Zach, because, this guy, wow, how many times do they bring it up that he just started playing basketball like 6 years ago and he played all these other sports. We know that. But it's like, he goes and he's another one of those guys like his freshman year and like in last year before the season started. When you talk about hearing these whispers before the season starts, Zach last year, they're like, he's putting the work on Travion. That's all people were saying. And then they come out to the season and Zach was starting over him to start. And, he struggled with it. It was tough between the two of them trying to divvy up those minutes. And I'm sure it wasn't easy on Painter either to figure all that out. Now he comes into this year and he's at the point where he's like the front runner for National Player of the Year. He's interviewing today with Barstool guys and he's getting this national media attention. For you as a guy that's close to him, what's it been like to watch his maturation process and his growth as a person and a player trying to, find his way in this, Purdue program?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a humble kid. Early on, he came in kind of quiet and soft-spoken, kind of got comfortable with everything. Him and I hit it off pretty quick. We've gone on 2 vacations together to California, and then we went up to Toronto last year. So it was cool to kind of see, some of his childhood friends, just like see the kid come out in him. You don't see that on the basketball floor. But he works so hard. I mean, after every practice last year, he's doing a little shooting workout that him and Tommy always do, and it's 7 spots just all right around the rim. 10 hook shots to the right, 10 hook shots to the left. Go hit 10 free throws. You go back through it again, and this time, if you miss one of the hook shots, you drop 2, so you're at 7. You miss one, you go back down to 5. And he's really detailed when he decides that I want to get better. I mean. I think he saw what was out there and the playing time that was available this year, and both mentally and physically, he was in the right mindset to get to where he needed to be. And obviously it's paying off.
Now, real quick, and then I'll let Kraig fire away, but Matt Painter was very outspoken in the postgame presser about Zach getting beat up. And he's, quite frankly, it seems like Matt's sick of it. We had mentioned on press row, you could tell early on because Maryland was being, I felt, overly physical, deliberately physical. And I understand they're doing everything they can. He's a load. I get it.
Well, they were going at his legs. They were going at his legs. That's what bothered me.
Right. And it's getting to the point, and you've seen this from time to time where Zach will get heated. And sometimes it's for like this year, it seems like he's been able to bottle that and make it into a positive. But there were times last year where he'd run into a frustration foul. I felt last game was the first time we saw a frustration foul from him this entire season. And when that happened, I turned to the guys, Kraig and Aiden next to me, and I was like, I'll tell you what, somebody's going to meet Zach on a bad day, because I'm sure he's getting sick of it. And then Matt steps in afterwards and says, I'm tired of it. And the number one thing we're trying to do now is calm Zach down, because I'm sure they're seeing it too. Like, everyone's got a breaking point, and he's as mild-mannered as they come. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to be on his bad side. And so, like, what are your observations when it comes to how, they ref him? I know it's not easy, and how teams defend him, where, in my eyes, you could call a foul every time down the court. He's getting pushed off before the ball even comes in. Then when he gets the ball, he's getting elbows to his side. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous, but I wanted to hear your thoughts and observations from it.
Yeah, I just feel like, every team's just trying to throw something at him, see what's going to work for the day, see what the refs are going to let him get away with. I mean, like you said, you could probably call, the jersey tug or the elbow every single time down the floor. But the refs have shown that it's not going to happen. Like, they're not going to give it to him every time. It's just so funny that in a game that being big should be a good thing, that now you're getting double teams sent to where they're hooking them. I mean, the Matty Sissoko play. It's very interesting. And I also just kind of feel like in the Big Ten, we don't know what we're going to get each day from a ref. So it's, from our standpoint, it's probably tough to game plan for that.
Yeah. I just had a conversation about that same topic about refs and just the inconsistency. It wasn't necessarily, it had to be called this way or it had to be called that way, but just the inconsistency from game to game and never from half to half, not knowing what's going to happen and things being let go the first half. And then all of a sudden, 15 fouls called in the first 8 minutes in the second half. It just seems ridiculous. And I know, Greg, we've mentioned like Ant Wright and a few other guys just talking about how that limits what the Big Ten can do sometimes when they get to the tourney based on the way it's officiated and how you have to succeed in the Big Ten sometime. I got to go back to a non-basketball question here. You mentioned euchre, and I saw on that original Twitter thread, Braden Painter's mom mentioned you being the euchre king or something like that earlier too. So I got to know two things. One, that's a Midwestern game. Braggs, are you a euchre player?
I don't play it, but I know what it is.
Okay, then you don't know. Okay, so
watch others play it.
Did you have to teach Zach how to play?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Zach and Ethan both. I mean, they'd played other similar games, so it was a pretty quick catch. But that's something that a lot of the managers would play together on road trips and things like that. And then we realized that some of the guys were in on it too. And so
who's the worst? Who's the worst euchre player on the team? That's what I gotta know.
Zach makes some bold calls, man. He gets away with them sometimes. He doesn't get away with them sometimes. We last year during the back half of the season, we taught Isaiah Thompson how to play, and it was fun playing with him if you weren't his partner. Love Zay, but yeah, he was trying to learn, so we respected it. But it was like, do we have to like? But no, me and Jared Wolbron, we're always partners whenever we play together, and
gotcha.
It's fun. Just throw $5 on a game or something, and just normally that just gets passed back and forth the whole night. But if someone goes on a little run, then everyone starts talking a little trash to each other. We've got a euchre group chat, and it's just like, all right, so I need to win some money back. Like, it's fun.
Nice. See,
that's really what grew my friendship with all those guys the most. Is just those nights at the dinner table, playing cards.
I got you. I love the game, and but I'm a kid that played from a very early age growing up. So like, if I throw off suit and somebody doesn't follow back to me with that suit, like I can't handle it. Like if you're not at that level, I don't want to be around you. Yeah. My next question is, you got to spend time around opposing coaches, around opposing teams. We all know as Purdue fans, like number one most hated opponent is IU. But after that, is there a program? Is there a team that you're just like, man, I want to kill those guys every time we see them?
Illinois. Illinois.
You didn't hesitate, Jared. You didn't hesitate.
They're just. I think a lot of people within the program would agree with that. There's been some bad blood there for a couple of years. The whole Sasha getting stepped on incident, and just their fan base is just as passionate as ours. But ours, I feel like, is a pretty positive fan base, and I don't know if we can say the same on the other side. It's 2 hours away. Stop at the Beef House on the way. It's definitely a rivalry. Even in the manager games, we felt
Sasha's in Serbia now playing pro ball, and for New Year's Eve or around New Year's Eve, he took a picture with Trent Frazier somewhere out on the town, and I was like, "The fuck, man!" Yeah. And I was like, "I get it, like you guys, it's it's a fraternity," but I was like, "Don't." I hate that dude, but I'm sure he's a good guy. But yeah, I feel that with that rivalry with Illinois. How about Michigan? Purdue plays Michigan this Thursday. Hunter Dickinson's got quite a mouth on him. He goes on podcasts talking all sorts of smack about schools. I think he's even taking shots at Illinois and Wisconsin. And The couple times he's had good games against Purdue, he's letting the crowd know. What are your thoughts with the Michigan program and your thoughts on the game for Thursday?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I snagged a ticket from Brandon to be able to head up there. So hopefully I can get that all lined out tomorrow and bring some energy for the Purdue crowd there. But yeah, I mean, obviously Dickinson's a really good player, but whether it be social media or on the court, he lets people know when he's feeling good. And on the road in the Big Ten, it's tough to win. So we're definitely going to have to bring our A game, and hopefully we can get it done, get through the weekend. I mean, I'd love to be number 1 ranked team in the country going down to Assembly Hall in a couple of weeks, but gotta play every game first. So
yeah, that's true. That's something that they could try to ascertain. Certainly, no days off in the Big Ten. I mean, they barely squeaked by Michigan State, who they have on Sunday. Last year, going into Michigan, that was the one game where a team throttled Purdue. It was at Michigan last year. I think Hunter Dickinson provides tough matchups for our bigs, the way he can pick and pop and pull you to the 3-point line and knock them down. So if he's having a good game, I'm sure it's going to get interesting on Thursday. So we'll just have to wait and see. But just overall, the fact that they're number 1 again is pretty damn impressive. Brian T wants to ask in the chat, your prediction for, the dreams of March, whether it's the Big Ten regular season, the Big Ten tournament, or the Holy Grail, the dance, and how far they can get. I mean, I'm not sure if you're a superstitious guy and even want to talk about it, but they haven't been to a final. Purdue's program hasn't been to a Final Four since 1980, but they've been breaking down a lot of barriers that this team has never done and things of that nature. So, what is your outlook for expectations for this team going into March?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're 20 games into the season. I think we've shown that everything we've got is real. But also with March, you never know what can happen. I mean, I was looking at bracketology today, and it's pretty much consensus that we're the number 1 overall seed. But we've got to take care of each game at a time. It starts with winning the regular season Big Ten, move on, get hot in the Big Ten tournament, and all it takes once we get to the dance is 6 good games. I mean,
do you think the Big Ten tournament takes anything out of teams? Like, some fans are skeptical of wanting a deep run in the Big Ten tournament because then you have to go and do it all over again in the March Madness tournament. How do you feel about that approach or mindset? How do you see all that?
I think it really depends on how you finish the season. I mean, if you kind of finish the season down, the Big Ten tournament's a great opportunity to kind of get rolling again and, carry that into the big dance. But, yeah, I mean, you want to win every trophy that's in front of you. So I personally enjoy it. I think it's really cool when you got all 14 fan bases in the same city and, last year hopping around the town a little bit and talking to people, meeting people, but also, just being able to have 5 days of good basketball. I love that point of the year to where, it feels like, in a sense, everything else stops for a little bit. So.
Yeah, and it'll be at the United Center this year.
Yeah, and I've never been there, so I hope to be.
I'll have to show you around. That's my neck of the woods. That's where we do the Chicago stuff up there. So I'll have to show you around, the United Center and all that stuff. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Kraig, you got any other Boilers related questions before we get into a couple non-related ones?
A couple non-related Boilers.
I got a couple in the tank for him.
Well, I just wanted to know what he does at Harry's exactly. I frequent Harry's on not a regular basis anymore. Now that I'm in that professor role versus student role, but I'm in there for time and again. Are you behind the bar, or are you a bouncer at the door?
Yeah, I'm just a doorman. I picked it up this fall. I figured I was there so much, I might as well get paid to do it, right?
Yeah, my name's on that. My name's on that wall somewhere from back in the 1990s. Braggs, have you been there?
Harry's, yeah, one time.
One time.
Yeah, so I'm a bouncer there. Currently trying to get into a full-time role somewhere, but it's a fun. Like I said, managing was the best job I could ask for as a college student. This is the second best job. 2 favorite places on campus.
Well, I'm sure you'll grow into whatever role you're looking to do. Keep grinding away at that. The thing I want to know is how you grew out this mullet, because this is starting to become your trademark here. For people that know you, how long has it taken to grow out that beautiful mane? And how long have you had it?
So it really, I was always buzz cut through March of 2020, but it was something I always wanted to do, but never really found the right opportunity. And COVID happened. I was like, yeah, we'll try it, see if I like it or not. And so it's been my last haircut would have been like that week or two before the world shut down, and then that Labor Day weekend of 2020, I had a few beers and decided to actually, shave the sides and do the mullet. And then I've only really had one or two trim ups since then. So it grew out pretty quick. And yeah, that's, some people know me as the headband manager guy from last year. There were even some fans last year that made a shirt with my face on it and had the headband, and I was wearing this quarter zip actually in the shirt. And so seeing my face on a t-shirt in Mackey Arena was insane. I mean, that was, just another, I've seemed to found myself in these situations to where people just notice me. And I think the hair definitely has a lot to do with it.
So the basketball managers games, I see this promoted on Twitter sometimes between the teams. Each manager's crew for each team, they face off the night before?
Yeah. So I was in charge of the Purdue manager Twitter page last year, and you reach out, you throw your phone number in a database, and you reach out either through text or just DM the other guys on Twitter and say, hey, what time you get done with your practice tonight? We can send some guys to pick you up at your hotel. And it's the game that nobody knows ever happens, but it's really cool to be able to go around. I mean, play in those arenas. I've played in Mackey multiple times, obviously now Assembly Hall, Hinkle. It's really cool. And it's all the guys afterwards will be like, hey, campus bar, meet us there. And so,
is there like a designated head coach in these games, or do you guys just kind of roll it out and play and figure out rotations? Like,
yeah,
how established is it?
It's pretty, each school does it differently. I mean, I know last year IU actually had some walk-ons that like coached the team. But we just do it. Our starting five last year was PJ Thompson, Tommy Luce, our strength and conditioning coach. Spike played with us a game or two, but he was a little too old for us. And then me and another one of our managers. So it's pretty much just, if someone's hot, let them ride. If you just need a break, like me, I'd play for about 5 minutes and I'd go sit down, socialize a little bit. But yeah, it definitely depends on how good the team is too. My first 2 years, we weren't very good. So we went out there and had some fun. And then, last year, PJ definitely was kind of an on-court coach for us. And so
sure.
Last year we won some games. We beat IU for the first time in my 5 years as a manager. And it was really cool.
How heated do these games ever get heated?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, in the Illinois manager game, there were a couple arguments 3 years ago that just, someone maybe fouled a little bit too hard, because it's all, you call your own fouls. I mean, it's like co-rec pickup basketball. I know my sophomore year against IU, we had a kid that took an elbow to the nose, and blood was everywhere.
Oh,
He ends up dropping like 25 on him in the second half. Still ended up losing that one, but like he went out on a mission after that. And there's definitely some arguments, but a lot of it's all in good fun too. Last year, Wisconsin was a Christmas break game. Obviously, we remember the struggles of not having the paint crew with us and whatnot. But
sure.
right after the game, I texted the guys and for them, I was like, "Hey, we're going to Harry's. There's no line. If you want to come meet us for a couple drinks, feel free." And we ended up having 3 or 4 hours there with the Wisconsin managers and just having a good time. And
Wait, what night of the week was it? There was no line at Harry's.
A Christmas break night.
Christmas break.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So I was scanning through some of your pictures. I left out some of the ones where you were out with the boys. I'll keep them off the beaten path here on our show here tonight. But like, what's going on here? Because this scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. So that was the most terrifying shit I've ever done in my life. That was from when me, Zach, and Ethan went to Toronto this past summer. And Zach was like, "Yeah, the CN Tower in Toronto, they've got an edge walk thing that we can do. And you guys want to do it?" And funny thing about Ethan, I mean, he's terrified of heights. And so, his palms were sweating, and I was terrified too, but he was more scared than me. So I felt comfortable in it. And Zach was kind of the same way, where it's like, we can't be the most scared ones. But yeah, we,
so what, you just lean back, or does this thing like swing you?
There's basically the width of a sidewalk. And you just walk around the edge. You're up there for about 30 minutes. The day we were up there was like 60-kilometer-mile-per-hour winds. You walk out and you feel, your heart drop just looking down into the Blue Jays having batting practice 1,500 feet in the air. It was crazy. You'd lean off the front of it at first, and then you lean off the back, and then you take pictures at the end. And it was something I'm so happy I did. It was a really cool experience. I'll never do it again. Nothing.
You couldn't.
I don't need to skydive. I don't need to do anything like that. That's about the edge of thrill that I need.
So Gunther Dixon in the chat saying, talk about playing against Greg Oden, obviously one of the legends of Indiana high school basketball.
Yeah. So I got dunked on by Greg Oden in a manager game. My junior year, I think. Yeah. It was cool, but also I probably should have just, stepped out of the way on that one, but yeah, it was really cool. I mean, growing up in Indiana, right as I was starting to fall in love with the sport was, the Greg Oden and Mike Conley team just running through the state. So that was certainly cool to have that moment and, play against guys and even, playing against guys from other schools that were recognizable faces. Bryant McIntosh from Northwestern. We tried to get Robbie Hummel to play with us one night. Didn't happen, but in summer camps when we do the coaches versus campers game, growing up a Purdue fan, getting to play a game with Robbie Hummel, that's really cool. And so definitely the people that I've met through this journey were incredible. I mean, I've got stories that could go all day.
Well, we definitely love to hear more of them. We won't take up too much more of your time, but I did come across this video on your timeline. I thought it would be cool to share here and maybe hear the story behind it.
Guys, it's not cheap. Have that. Thank you.
So there's, I'm assuming your old man, your pops, huh?
Yeah.
Getting him some kind of a Christmas gift. What was the story behind this?
Yeah. So that's my pinned tweet. And if there's one thing that I love more, or our family, or I grew up in an IU family, oddly enough, but our family, my dad and I, we are huge IndyCar fans. My dad is 67 and he's been to 59 Indy 500s. I'm 24, and this year will be my 20th, and that is our favorite day of the year. So my mom and I, Christmas, I think it was 2018, 2019 maybe, we got a 2-seater ride around IMS for my dad. And I mean, just you can see the emotion on his face. That was emotional for us. I mean, just I remembered it was July 2nd of that year that we ended up doing the ride, and it was the happiest I have ever seen him.
That's awesome.
He's walking around like a kid in the candy store with his fire suit on, and then hopping in the car, and you kind of see the look of fear in his eyes, and then get out. I mean, it's the biggest smile I've ever seen from him. It was incredible.
Holly Thompson says in the chat, at least Tammy tried to raise you right. Assuming she's referring to IU. Well, I don't know. I think Jared figured it out the right way here. But
yeah, Holly's one of my friends from high school, and we'd always had bets of.
She's an IU fan or IU alum.
She's an IU grad.
Okay, well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
No, we kid, Heidi. We'll see you in a couple weeks. All right. Well, one more quick one. I saw this on your Twitter. You said Field of Dreams can make a grown man cry. Now, I'm assuming this means that you did cry while you watched Field of Dreams. I see, your dad get emotional, so maybe it runs in the family, or you get emotional when you watch Field of Dreams.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was a day that I went out to the hot tub, brought out a TV, and maybe brought out a few beers too. And so that might have had something to it, but there was definitely, that moment just kind of, the ending of that movie, it reminds me of things like that with my dad at the track.
What movies have you gotten emotional at, or is that the only one? Or what other movies would you say you've cried at? Because I used to give my mom a lot of shit when we were younger. She cried when we went and saw Free Willy. So what is the funniest movie? I mean, I got semi-emotional in Dark Knight Rises when I thought Batman died at the end. He's my guy. Yeah. So what movies have you gotten emotional with?
I wouldn't really say I'm an emotional movie watcher. I think it was just the fact that, sitting out with a couple beers, and I was just sitting out there alone, and I don't know what it was. It was, I'm pretty sure it was like a Tuesday afternoon too. It was just, not having a full-time job. Just I literally sit, watch movies, trying to find something. And when I got spare time, I'll go out to the hot tub with a beer or two. And,
I'm just giving you some shit here.
Yeah,
we appreciate your time tonight. It's been a lot of fun. It's been cool to get this interesting insight. This was a good idea by Kraig to bring you on because, like I said, we've crossed paths a few times, and your story is definitely really cool. And I just think it's a unique perspective to this program that we're all really, invested in. And, so maybe we'll just start to have you as a hot tub correspondent or something. I think
that can work. I certainly enjoyed tonight. So anytime.
And as we go, we'll get dirt, any dirt you can give us on these guys, that helps. Bobby Riddell is a frequent guest, sometimes even helps co-host parts of our shows. He was going to come on tonight, but they left town early because, with the weather conditions and the snow coming in. So make sure you drive safe. But, Bobby is a big part of what we do here. And, we have the stalker cam always ready for him. And so if you have any, dirt on Bobby before you go, I guess we could try to press you on that.
Yeah. I mean, I only really spent 1 year with Bobby, but it was funny, at the Mohegan Sun every day coming into breakfast, he'd just look at me with a thumbs up or a thumbs down and just ask me how I did. And, the first 3 or 4 nights we were there, it was always a thumbs down, but we made it back up in the last day. And that's my favorite Bobby story. Just sitting at the breakfast table, I think he could see it in my eyes a little bit. And that last day kind of gave me a little nod, and I just gave him that nod back.
Yeah, well, Bobby's a great dude. So it's been great getting to know you a little better here. yeah, we'll definitely, maybe we'll keep in touch and try to bring you on some more as the season goes. And hopefully they continue this historic run and continue to do things that Purdue fans have never seen before. But brick by brick, as I like to say, one step at a time. Like you said, maybe get to Sunday, let the paint crew see the number one team in the country for the first time ever. They actually have never seen that. Get to Assembly Hall as the number one team in the country first time ever would be pretty cool. Winning the Big Ten, Big Ten tournament, and then the dreams of the March Madness tournament upon us. So we definitely would love to bring you on here more as the season goes. So shout out to Kraig. This was a good idea to bring you on. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we really appreciate all the time you've given us tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, this was incredible. I could talk Purdue basketball all day long. So,
oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah. All right, well, sounds good, Jared. Well, we'll cut you loose. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll catch you here real soon, and we'll see you at Mackey on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, boiler up.
Boiler up.
And that is Jared Harter. So I'm going to do a little ad read here, and we'll get on to, kind of previewing a little bit of Michigan quickly. And we're going to be doing a post-game show after the Michigan game, so won't take up too much more of your time tonight. But I do want to give my guys over at FanBags a quick shout out. So I'm sorry, I got to get my wording. That Jared Harter interview is brought to you by FanBags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off your entire order. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with FanBags Cornhole. That's BRAGGS for that code. And then I also want to make sure I give a shout out to our guys over at The Collector's Cave. Go ahead and visit them at www.thecollectorscave.com. Be on the lookout for their upcoming signings and public autograph and meet and greets with your favorite Chicago sports athletes and athletes beyond the Chicagoland area. Make sure you visit their website again at www.thecollectorscave.com for other memorabilia needs. They have it all, one-stop shop for all the greatest sports stuff you can find. So those are my guys over at the Collector's Cave. So yeah, that's what we're doing here tonight. That was a great interview. We really appreciated, everything that, all the insights from Jared there. That was really cool to, get to know him a little bit, trying to do some unique things. We have some more guests coming up here real soon. And, I like bringing that one in as we approach this Michigan game here just a couple days away, which again, we'll be doing a post-game show for as they are on the road. Joe and Aiden will be back with us as long as Aiden. I'm not sure if he's got a game or not. If not, maybe we'll just make Jared come on again. If because he was really great. What did you think of that, Kraig?
Oh, I thought it was great just to hear some of the personal stories. And I know Twin Lakes very well. I got several friends I went to college with from back in that town. So great hearing about him coming up through that high school and having success in his sports. And then just hearing those personal stories. I mean, we all see what the players are out there on the court and we think we know them, but we may really not. So it's good to hear some of those things confirmed that we all think we know about how great of guys they are and hard workers they are and all that type of stuff for sure. And man, he just seems like one of those like most interesting guy in the world type thing.
Right. Like he's been on the moon, he's flown in space and,
he seems to keep landing in these spaces where he shows up. Some guy retweeted that picture when I put it on Twitter and was like, how am I not surprised that I'm seeing you again come across on my timeline for some other random thing,
Yeah.
Hey, you got to tell people to hit that like button and subscribe, bud.
Yeah, I've forgotten tonight. We were enthralled in the interview, but if you enjoyed what you heard from Jared and you enjoy what we do here at Brags in the Sands, Kraig is absolutely right. Please, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. But more importantly, because if you're here, you understand where we are. Like the show that you're watching right now. If you're still here, that means you're enjoying what you're hearing and seeing, and we appreciate everybody that is, of course. And subscribe to our channel. If you like the show, subscribe to our channel. That's really going to help everything we're trying to build on our YouTube end of things. Pump up that algorithm so we can send it to other people that aren't aware of what we do yet, because we got some big plans coming. We got big guests still to come. Jared was a great guest, so we're going to try to find the unique. We're going to try to bring on current players like we have with Fletcher Lawyer and Ethan Morton and maybe some others, as long as it's not impeding their schedule. That's most important to us because we want them to win basketball games first and foremost. But even the former players, obviously Bobby Riddell is a staple to what we do here. Bobby Buckets, as they call him in Boiler Nation, and Chris Kramer's been on. We've been talking with him a little bit about doing some different things with us. And we've had plenty of guests in the past, Robbie Hummel, Isaac Haas, the list goes on and on and on. Rafael Davis, everybody, maybe one day we'll get Etwan Moore, one of my guys from the region. I live in the region. I don't know how I haven't gotten him yet, but he's a tough get, and as a Bulls fan, I'd love to talk to him too, because he played for the Bulls for a little bit too. But that's what we're doing here. We're trying to bring on fun guests, have fun conversation. And now, a big thing with what we're doing is these post-game shows. So please tune in Thursday night. We got Purdue versus Michigan in Ann Arbor. Last year, Purdue got the brakes beat off them, Kraig, in that game. So I'm a little curious as to how they're going to go into that. Obviously, back as number one in the country. So, Michigan fans were going to be fired up regardless, but I think that ups the ante a little bit with the pressure. We don't have to do a full-out breakdown of the whole game, but let's just get some of our, overall thoughts going into this Michigan matchup.
Well, I think they present some challenges, and first and foremost, right? They're really the only team in the Big Ten that has a center that is somewhat comparable in size to Zach. So just in terms of putting a body on a guy and meeting body to body in the paint, he's one of the few guys that can actually, not impose his will necessarily, but he's one of the few guys that can meet Zach, kind of size-wise, weight-wise, that kind of stuff. And then on the opposite side of that, he does have the ability to pick and pop. And I got some good friends that are Michigan fans. And one of the things that they mentioned is that Hunter doesn't seem to be playing with the same amount of confidence that he has in the last couple of years. I haven't watched a lot of Michigan basketball this year, but when I have, one of the other things I've noticed is just like, man, they'll go 4 or 5 minute stretches sometimes and never give him the ball. And I know they've got other dudes on that team, but like, you've got one of the premier centers in the Big Ten. And unlike Purdue this year, where we have a whole bunch of guys that know the first role is to run the offense through Zach, there seems to be times where they just forget that they have the second best center in the Big Ten. No offense to TJD. But like they just forget sometimes. Now they've got some wings that are really athletic, that are bigger, and they can get really heated up from outside. And if they get going, they can present some challenges too. But I think primarily if Hunter's picking and popping and he's hitting, which hasn't necessarily been the case a lot this year, then that could, if that's happening, then that changes everything else. If he's not hitting from outside, then I think it's a game that's pretty manageable. I think a lot's also going to depend on whether or not Jet plays. I didn't see the injury when it happened the other day, but I guess it didn't look real good, but they haven't announced anything yet. He's clearly their second best player on that team and can present some problems from a wing position with his size and athleticism. So, I'd rather he played because I'd like to think we can beat people with their best lineups.
Right.
But a lot's going to depend on that.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think with Hunter, we talk about whether or not he's hitting. I feel like he has better nights against Purdue because they give him those shots out there. It's just the way Purdue plays defense, whereas Hunter might play another team where they chase him off the 3-point line a little more. Purdue's not going to do that. They're going to sit back and make him take those shots, and he's capable of making them. So then it gets to a point once he's proven he's getting hot, then you got to make a decision on how you're going to chase him off the line and to defend him that way. So it'll be interesting because, when Zach had to guard the 3-point line against Michigan State in the second half, granted it was against a guard who really was putting him in a bind, that caused problems for Purdue's defense. And Painter said after that game that they were ready to trap that if it had happened again. So it'll just be interesting to see what they do. I'll be interested to hear Aiden and Joe's observations with, the, strategy they have against this, because they really took it to us at Michigan last year. So I hope that's not the same result, obviously. But Purdue's built themselves quite a cushion here in the Big Ten. They're 8-1 in the standings, and there's 3 teams, I think, with 3 losses. Rutgers took down Penn State at home tonight. They beat the brakes off Penn State, so that's a big win for them. And Illinois just bounced back from their loss to IU, their 15-point loss to IU, where they just really took it to Ohio State, where the wheels have completely fallen off for Ohio State. So, just overall, Kraig, when you look at the Big Ten and where Purdue stands in this whole thing, is it because there's only 11 games to go now, right? So it's like, how hard is it for you to not really be like just thinking about that Big Ten title and adding to the most Big Ten titles in the regular season in this conference and adding to that resume?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, one of the things that I've watched, I watch a lot of college basketball outside the Big Ten too. And several of these teams that have been up in the top 5, it seems like when they've had a loss recently, it's led to 2 or 3. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, because you look at Kansas, only had 1 loss. Didn't seem like they were going to get beat again. They lose that second one, and then they lose a third one. They lose a fourth one. You look at UConn, same thing. UConn loses like 4 out of 5. On some teams, looking at some teams that looked really good by the eye test earlier this year. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm relatively comfortable with the 2-game lead. I've said it most of the year. I was way higher on Rutgers in the preseason than most other Big Ten prognosticators. I'm still high on Rutgers. I think that's our most legitimate threat, because defense travels, and you have to be able to win on the road in the Big Ten. And Rutgers defense is always going to be there. So that's the one team that jumps out and scares me as we go forward. I think we're in a really good position. But like I said, you watch what happened to Kansas. You watch what happened to UConn. I'm not going to get the cart before the horse here, I guess.
Sure. Never a day off in the Big Ten. We know this. We talked about that Rutgers, Penn State, Rutgers, Ohio State, Penn State, 3 games in a row being the toughest stretch. You'd mentioned that on previous shows earlier in the year.
Well, there was fourth game. There was a 4th game in that too that went with those. I forget who we played.
No, it was Rutgers it was on a Monday. Then they played Ohio State on a Thursday at Ohio State. And then on the Sunday, they played Penn State. Then they played Nebraska a week later. Now you're looking at Michigan at Michigan, and then Michigan State on Sunday after the game, the battle we saw, and you were there in person at Michigan State. Do you now look at these two? It seems to me, because as you mentioned, you're not taking anything for granted. They could easily lose these next 2 games, even as great of a team and this surprise of a rebuild season as it is. And it doesn't mean they're a bad team, even if they do. But I think is, obviously you'd like to split or obviously take both. But there's a realistic possibility they lose both of these games, right?
No. Look, Walker's
not out of the realm of possibility is what I'm trying to brace Purdue fans for. Because I was asked we do our CHGO bets show, and they were like, they're just going to run away with this. I was like, I could be coming here next Tuesday when we do our shows for CHGO bets, and they could have lost these next 2. It doesn't mean bad, but it's certainly a possibility.
I've had that at Michigan game circled regardless of what their record is from the beginning of the year because of the matchup problems they can create. I know Michigan State played us really tough. They played us really tough at Breslin with Walker going as nuclear as he had for the entire year.
Right.
I don't see, and that's also, and you hear players talk about all the time, how a team plays like that first game after they lose a guy, right? So they lose Hall again. They all come together for like a concerted effort. Walker goes nuts in Breslin. I just don't see that carrying to playing us in Mackey. I don't think that formula for them is sustainable for the rest of the season. Not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility they beat us in Mackey, but I'm not near as worried about that game. And we have Michigan State and Penn State at home, so that's why I would not call this stretch as tough as that previous 3-game stretch that we were looking at. But certainly going to be tough games, and Purdue's shown. We've been in a lot of close games this year, so
they've just been on the right side of the majority of them, undefeated on the road, as Christopher Tice says. Puts in the chat at 100%. So, I mean, you take it at this point. I mean, you get a little cushion, but it'll just be interesting to see how everything shakes out. My guy Walter Williams is in the chat. I don't know if he's here anymore, but he was texting me. He's a Michigan fan. And he's like, Michigan's on right now. They're playing IU. This was yesterday. I'm like, damn, they playing IU? I was like, they just played on Saturday and they're going to play us on Thursday. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And then I look, it's the women's teams playing each other. I'm like, Walter. And he's like, I didn't look. I was like, just pay attention, dude. And then he's like, you going to take me to the game on Thursday? I'm like, it's at Michigan, Walter. Like, he's all over the map with his Michigan team, but he'll be talking a whole lot of shit as we go into Thursday, and we'll see who's talking after the game, Walter. So make sure you tune in for the post game, win or lose. He's a good buddy of mine. My mom's also in the chat. She's not happy that I outed her this is like a story that lives in infamy with her, that she cried at Free Willy. We're all sitting there and I don't know if you remember this movie, Kraig, from the 90s.
I do.
Who doesn't? That grew. It was a blockbuster hit of a whale that's living at SeaWorld, and it escapes the SeaWorld prison or whatever. It's in captivity, and it escapes and becomes free. And when it does, he jumps over this kid that's helped save the whale. And as he's flying over the air, we look over at my mom and she's just bawling in tears, and we just all started laughing. So she's not too happy with me that I brought that up, with Jared, but it was a great moment. We're an emotional family. I'm an emotional guy, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't gotten teary-eyed or two in times of watching movies. So I'll admit that, Mom, but, she wasn't too happy with me. So she'll just have to get over that, though.
Hey, you gotta be able to tear up at a good movie every once in a while.
What movie have you cried at, Kraig, since we're all on the chopping block here?
Dead Poet Society. Did you have to watch Dead Poet Society in high school?
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
So I was in college. I think I was in college when that movie came out. So I'm showing my age a little bit here. But that's probably the first one. But I'm going to be honest. I don't cry at anything hardly ever in real life. Just very, very rarely. But if it's a movie, and anything about, fathers and daughters, fathers and sons type of movie, that tears me up. So
this is funny. I didn't see this when Jared was in, but Rue Dog says, this is so epic to know we could just go to Harry's and get a drink from the same dude who hangs out with Zach Eady for dinner. That's pretty funny.
I put it up earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Good job. That's why we work as a team. My head's spinning, and I had the Illinois game on too, so I kept peeking, even though they were winning by like 15. But I'm obsessed because there's only 3 teams now with 3 losses. Wisconsin loses to Northwestern, correct? At Northwestern, which is becoming a really tough place to play at the Welsh Ryan Arena in Evanston. Northwestern's really making a bid to have their second ever trip to the March Madness dance. So like now I'm just so keyed in on all these teams that are behind us. There's only 3 teams in the second spot that have 3 losses: Michigan, Rutgers, and who? I'm missing the third team. Michigan,
Northwestern, right?
Maybe it is, isn't it? Let me pull it up.
I'm pulling it up.
Yes, you're right. Rutgers are 6-3. Michigan is 5-3. Northwestern is 4-3. So I'm like praying with all of my being that Purdue can somehow continue to have 1 loss in the conference and these other teams fall to 4 losses as we whittle down these games to get to the end of the year. I just think, I mean, for Purdue last year to fall short of all these goals, I mean, right on the brink of winning the Big Ten and fall short at Wisconsin in the final games, getting to the Big Ten tournament championship and falling to Iowa in a close game, and then getting to the Sweet 16 and losing to the team that will remain nameless in an epic collapse, another close heartbreak of a game, and it left a bad taste in all Purdue fans' mouth. And it's hard because they were such a talented team in the top 10 all year. First team to ever be number 1 in program history. They achieved things that this program never did, and it was a big deal. They had a player be drafted in the top 3 in the NBA draft. I mean, they have Travion still fighting to get in the pros. Sasha's overseas playing in the pros. Eric Hunter, Isaiah Thompson, seniors and juniors, the guys that had, and they just couldn't get it because the Big Ten is not easy, and you just don't take it for granted. I don't care what year it is. So now here's this year where we all thought it was going to be a rebuild and we were just going to be happy if they could finish 4th or 5th in the Big Ten. That would have been like their high water mark. I think a lot of us felt to start the year. Now they're so close to achieving a goal that last year's unbelievably talented team couldn't even achieve. And I just learned from last year, you don't take those kind of achievements for granted. So now, yeah, I'm just obsessed with all these other teams just beating the shit out of each other so Purdue can get this one. I mean, they've earned it, but it's also a little bit of the half of the other reason of it is that these other teams are just killing each other right now. And I love to see it. They can keep doing it for all I care. I know it hurts the rankings, and I know that's something you're always very keyed in on is, our quality of opponents keeps going down and down and down with.
No. Because you're looking at AP rankings. In the net rankings, we still have, I think, 4 teams in the top 25 in the net, if I remember right. And there's 9 teams. Northwestern was 51 entering today. So I think there's 9 teams in the top 51 in the net, which they might have moved up since I last checked. But when we're looking at those quad wins, right, that's all that really matters when it comes to seeding is that net ranking for quad 1, quad 2, quad 3 wins. The AP poll doesn't mean jack shit. So in terms of net rankings, we're still fine in terms of the schedule looking like we're playing quality opponents. So I'm not worried about that.
Okay, and that's fair, and I appreciate you handing those numbers out because, like I said, on the CHGO Big Ten betting show that we do, we were talking about this, and yeah, they were when I had made the statement to my co-host Mark Carmen, who does CHGO Bears with me. He's a big Northwestern guy, and I was like, "Guess what, Mark? They're going to the dance this year," and I feel very strongly about that now. They've beaten enough teams. They're 3-1 on the road. They have 9 wins at home against some pretty impressive opponents. I know some of them weren't having their best days when they played Northwestern, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, that they're on their resume. They beat IU. They've beaten Illinois. They've beaten Wisconsin. They're beating good teams. And it's becoming real tough to play at Northwestern. Purdue plays at Northwestern on Super Bowl Sunday before the big Super Bowl. We'll see who gets in there, but so it'll be interesting to see how Purdue does. I told Mark that Purdue will wax them, but it's still, you got to give credit to Chris Collins. I mean, he's been getting his ass whooped in this conference for a long time now. And he had some guys transfer out to UNC and to Duke, and you got Miller Kopp playing at IU, and he's been able to turn that team into a bunch of fighters. So I'm really interested to see how this all shakes out. And yeah, still a long way to go. Steve Dodson, completely agree. But I just would love to see this team accomplish some great things this year, as we all do as Boiler fans. So yeah, I'm just obsessive about these other teams continuing to get knocked off game by game.
And I checked. Northwestern moved back into the top 50. So there are 9 top 50 in that net ranking. But a large part of that for Northwestern is they're a top 20 defense in KenPom this year. So you look right now, Rutgers, Northwestern, Purdue, all 3 are top 20 in KenPom defense. Well, what's else is common about those 3? They're 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten right now by standing, right?
Sure.
So that defense travels, and it travels on the road. And I'm a big Field of 68 guy and watch a lot of those shows. And Terrence Oglesby said just point blank when talking about this Purdue team compared to last year, what the difference was. And a lot of other people were trying to say, it was this or it was that. He just said defense. That's all it is. Last year's team ranked in the 70s, 80s, 90s at different points during the year on defense. This year's team is now, last time I checked, we're a top 20. I think we were 17th in KenPom on defense. So when the offense isn't working perfectly, like we saw the last game, Purdue can win defensively. And it's a lot harder for those St. Peter's type of upsets to happen in the tournament when you're also going to lock them down on the defensive end, and you don't have to rely on everything going perfect offensively.
Makes sense. And I saw this stat and I just had to pull it up because that was the bugaboo for last year's team was defense, right? As you mentioned. And I saw this stat come across the Twitter timeline that had my ears perked up. Since 2002, every NCAA tournament winner but one was top 25 in both offense and defensive efficiency for KenPom. 7 weeks to Selection Sunday, and there are currently 8 teams that fit this resume. Houston, Alabama, UCLA, UConn, Kansas, Texas, Virginia, and the Purdue Boilermakers. So they're fitting the criteria that every team but one since 2002 has had to have to win the dance. Not just get to the Final Four, win the whole damn thing.
Right. Now, a real important thing about that statistic is not to manipulate that and say because they're top 25 in both, that there's a highly good how do I want to put it? Just because they're top 25 in both, like if you would go back to each tournament, not every team that was top 25 in both made the Final Four or made the Elite Eight, right?
Sure.
But the team that won it all was. So you have to meet those criteria generally, all but 1 year to be a national champion. But there's still a chance you can get upset and meet that criteria too. So
100%.
For sure. But it's good to know that they are at least on that level, both offensively and defensively, to, have a legitimate shot going in.
And we can't wait to find out. Right. And, it'll just be interesting.
That's still like 14 games away. I'm not thinking about the tournament yet. Enjoy the ride, Braggs. Be like Jared Harter when he's out on the friggin' railing in Ontario or wherever he is, and just enjoy the ride along the way, man.
I'm looking little picture and big picture and everything else. I'm excited for everything we're doing here at what this channel is called Braggs in the Stands, but we're calling these shows Boilers in the Stands, just so people can understand what we're trying to do here. And I think for those of you that have tuned in long enough or have tuned into our shows this year or last, can understand what we're doing here. But we want to get some brand recognition out there. So these shows, when we talk Boilers basketball, will be called Boilers in the Stands. And we appreciate everyone once again for tuning in tonight. Still a good number of people watching live, and we really appreciate that. For those of you that are still here, obviously you're enjoying what you're seeing if you're listening to me ramble for this long. So please hit that like button for Kraig and I. Subscribe to our channel, spread the word, do everything you can, because when we do these post-game shows, the chat is just lit up. Everyone's bringing their comments to it. It makes the show so much better. Today, we've been pulling up a bunch of comments and questions for our guests. You only enhance what the interview or the show's experience is when you interact like that with us. And we really appreciate it because it just shows that you're enjoying what we're doing. And we're going to keep working hard for you here. Once again, Kraig, I want to thank you and commend you for the hard work you put into this over the last 2 years, but specifically in the last week, while I was on vacation in Evansville, freaking out because I had no service while I'm at a concert with my wife, trying to at least help promote the show while it's going on. You guys were holding it down, doing the post game against Minnesota, and then once again on Sunday for the big win at home against Maryland. So, I appreciate all the hard work you put in, and and once again, congratulations on 10,000 followers to your Boiler Diehards Facebook group. And I also want to shout out, your guys over at Brokerage Brewing Company. Once again, they gave you, a nice little spot to. He's getting the hat on. He's getting the swag on. Get your swag on.
Throwing the brokerage swag on.
Got the brokerage swag on. Make sure you pop by them. Kraig, why don't you give everybody this spiel on the Brokerage Brewing Company so I don't butcher it, because you're one of their most loyal customers and friends with the people that run the whole thing over there.
Yeah, just a really good brewery in West Lafayette. It is West Lafayette's oldest brewery, even though it was established in 2016. But if you like craft beer, it's my favorite in the Lafayette area. It's really close to Mackey Arena in terms of just making a short little couple mile drive down from it to Mackey. So on game nights, when you get into town a little bit early, it's a really nice place to stop. There's always a good crowd there. They've got some TVs in there now to watch games ahead of time. Great people, great owners, and really good craft beer.
Yep, and good food too. They got some good food. I've come by a few times.
They don't have food anymore.
They don't have food anymore?
No, they went back to just they did the food thing for a couple of years and just decided to go back to straight up
good
model.
What am I supposed to do? That's fine. I mean, they got to do it.
I don't know. You're allowed to. It's BYOF. You're allowed to.
So I can bring a pizza in.
Yeah, you can order a pizza.
Taco Bell.
You can Grubhub. I order sushi in from the neighboring sushi place.
Question people's business decisions. I'm having a hard enough time trying to figure out how to get this on an audio platform. We get people asking about that all the time. When are you going to put this on audio stuff? Yeah. And I actually was just on with some people and they were walking me through it. It's actually extremely easy. And
it is.
It's just shocker. I'm just lazy, I guess. I say I'm too busy, but then I spend all my days on Twitter tweeting nonsense. So it's hard for me to say that I am too busy, even though I kind of am. But we appreciate everybody finding us where we are and watching us. I always feel like what we do here with the video and playing the clips of the guys making plays, like I feel like that's part of what separates us. I understand some people just want to listen when they're at work and they don't need all the bells and whistles of the production. But, like to me, this is what makes us special. We're not only just giving you our insights and different personalities and guests, but we're giving you a look and a feel of what it's like to be at Mackey Arena and watch these guys play. We want to show you the game-winning shots and do all the different things. So we're trying to do as much as we can to provide a unique coverage of Purdue basketball. And there's a lot of great people out there doing their own thing. We do our best to try to support everyone in the Purdue Boilermakers, community that's doing their own content work. But this is what we do here. And, so I take a lot of pride in it. I know Kraig does too. And of course, Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz are starting to become really important to what we do here. Bobby Riddell as well. All of us have put this thing together and it's growing really, really well this year. And to end this year, I'm really excited for some of the shows we're going to have breaking down some of these games. I have a good feeling that we're going to be having a lot of fun here going forward. But yes, I'm eyes on Thursday. I'm not just looking at the whole season. I do want to give a shout out to Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz from the Feed the Post Purdue basketball podcast. You can find them on Spotify and all the other places that you can actually find audio podcasts where you can't find us, but one day you might find us if Greg ever gets his shit together. So once again, thank you for everybody for tuning in tonight. One more thing from Steve Dodson says last year's team was flashy. This year's team is not as sexy, but tougher, more Purdue-like, Boiler up, and Jeff Parks. I think you already had this up on the defensive efficiency. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, last year's team was extremely talented. This team, in a lot of ways, embodies a lot of what Matt Painter, preaches as a coach. At the end of the day, they're both extremely talented teams. And I just think as a program, Purdue fans should just be very grateful for the players within it and the coach that runs it.
Okay.
It's really good.
But don't tell me that Braden Smith isn't flashy and doesn't try to play flashy.
That's true. Yes.
Like that dude throws flashy passes and throws a couple sometimes maybe that are a little bit too flashy. And Painter talked about it the one time. So there's some flash in this team too. I think this team is tougher, and I think they're more cohesive on the defensive side of the ball. But there's some flash here still.
Yep, no doubt about it. And hey, that's all right. It's good to have some confidence too. It takes confidence to do things, to do big things. Let's hope they do some of those things. So again, here's my Midwestern goodbye. And one day when we're on audio podcasts, this will be when people have already turned off the podcast because they don't need to hear me ramble for 5 more minutes. So again, thank you to Kraig for all the hard work and help me out with this show. Thanks once again to Jared Harter, former Purdue basketball manager, hell of a personality. Hopefully we can bring him on here a few more times as the season goes. He seemed open to it, so we'll probably take him up on that. Thank you again to Jared Harter for all his time tonight. And thank you again to all the listeners and viewers of this show hanging out with us for over an hour and a half as we break down some Purdue basketball talk once again. And on Thursday night, immediately following the Michigan-Purdue game, Kraig and I, along with Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz, will be live immediately as soon as that game's over, breaking down win or lose, how the game has gone. We haven't broken down a loss yet, so let's hope we keep that streak going. We've only been talking about wins, which is much more fun. I'm sure eventually we'll have to grit our teeth and bear it with breaking down a loss, but let's hope Thursday is not that day. What do you got to say, Kraig? You just give me a funny look like shut up and just end the show. Matt's like, you know what, Kraig?
Still on the Midwestern goodbye, Greg.
It's almost like Night at the Apollo. You remember Night at the Apollo when the guy is just getting booed off the stage?
Never watched it. Watched it.
It's just like Apollo it's not a movie. It's where comedians go or used to go. It's not around anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But when the comedian was so bad, they would boo him relentlessly, and then they'd have this guy come out with a broom and brush him off. So this is our broom guy. When it's time to just end it, we pull up this picture of Matt Painter. This is the wrap it up sign I think we'll have to institute with me and my rambling. So again, thank you to all. Have a good night. And always boiler up.